I don't think so. I don't.
Add up all those zeros.
All right, guys, we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. This is the June 16th, 2015 Council Committee meeting. First item on the agenda is Public Works. Mr. Cahill.
Yes, Mayor. So Public Works Committee, we actually had this added on so we can discuss the bids received for the Capitol Street projects. We plan to award those bids at the 7/7/15 meeting, the regular council meeting. At that time, the bid tabulations will be provided at the meeting by Mr. Viox and myself and Mr. Bogart. So right now, we'd just like to discuss the recommendations and anything regarding that. Mr. Viox?
Yes, sir. We took bids on 3 projects. The first one was Lambda Drive, concrete street replacement from Woodland Hills to Kingsburg. We had 3 bidders. JPS Construction at $84,951. TMS, and we had 4 bidders. TMS Construction Incorporated, $87,762.75. Paul Michaels and Sons at $93,015. And M&W Excavation at $104,180. I'm going to recommend to the Public Works Committee that they suggest JPS Construction, Inc. be awarded the contract, and the total cost of the job is under our estimates by almost $2,000. Second project was Division Street. We had 4 bidders, and that's a reconstruction project. And the reason they are separated is that Division Street, as I described at the last meeting, is one that had to have the water main replaced, so it's subject to the contractor not being able to start till the Water District's contractor's out of the way. The first bidder, low bidder, was JPS Construction Incorporated again at $212,071.50. Second was TMS Construction Incorporated at $233,837. Paul Michaels and Sons Incorporated was third at $249,393.75. And last was M&W Excavation Company at $249,966. I'm going to recommend that the contract be awarded to JPS Construction to the Public Works Committee. And I'll tell you that the project is going to come in roughly $17,000 under our budgeted amount of the estimate we did at budget time. The last is a concrete street replacement on Enterprise Drive, American Court to the end, and American Court, and also includes a storm sewer installation. We had 3 bidders: JPS Construction, $294,359.20. Paul Michaels and Son at $335,941.75, and M&W Excavation Incorporated at $343,430. Again, I'm going to recommend the low bidder of JPS Construction Company, and that project is coming in almost $35,000 under our budgeted amount. That's my report, sir.
All right, thank you. Is there any questions there?
Good job. Yeah.
Yeah?
Exciting.
Yeah, it looks like we're, what, almost $55,000 under budget between those 3.
Get a raise.
I think we've used JPS in the past, too, been very satisfied with their work. So.
Yeah.
All right. Any questions there? Okay, to move on to the next item here on the list then, under administration. Mr. Howard, Ms. Cahill?
Yes, Mayor. Everybody's received, should have received on their code, the code of conduct on the personnel policy. And I believe I'm going to turn it over to Missy if you've got.
Okay, that's fine. Do you want to say anything before I start?
You want to go over the other ones, or we're just going to talk about the code of conduct?
I was going to just go down the line with them.
Go down the list, and
Yeah.
when we're ready, I'll
Yeah.
jump in if you want me to.
Okay. You know, last year we had a big rewrite of our personnel policies. And through this past year, we have come across items that need to be tweaked or changed, and things do change, so we have to make those changes. I've sent these out to you, but I thought I would just kind of go over them very quickly with you on the actual changes. There was a lot of spelling and grammar that I changed in the policy, but I didn't bother to send you all out that. You don't know, you don't need to approve of a change in spelling or anything. So the first one was section 2.7. It was the personnel records and administration. Now, I do want to tell you that we got together as a group. There was a committee that went over these policies and the changes and everything that needed to be done. So a lot of this came out of that group and the recommendations. They asked that in that section that employees who wish to review their own files should contact the Human Resource Department. It says with reasonable advance notice, employees may review and request copies of any item in their personnel files. We added that in and request copies of any item. That was not in there before. So anything that's coming up that is highlighted in yellow has been either added or deleted. If it's underlined, it's been added. If it's struck through, it's been deleted on these coming up.
That was very simple. Somebody on the committee said to us, well, people don't know they can request one.
Yeah.
So we put that in there.
So the next one is section 2.16. It's reemployment after retirement. There was some changes that we felt needed to be made there. We changed in that one line, when an employee retires, they must cease all employment with all CERS, KERS, and PRS participating agencies. That's something through KRS that is a requirement that they do. So we added that in there. And then also retirees may not enter into a prearranged agreement to return to employment in any position within the city of Erlanger. That was also added. And then prior to reemployment, the city of Erlanger and the retiree must certify on a certain form, and we're required by KRS to do, or by CERS to do that, that a pre-existing agreement does not exist.
Okay.
Okay, so that's pretty much housekeeping items that we've done.
Okay, but they can still, after a period of time, come back. Is that not true or no?
Yes, it is true.
Yes.
Okay.
As long as all those other, I guess,
Requirements
criteria
have
are
been
met.
met.
Okay, good, good.
Yeah, we cannot legally have a pre-arranged agreement with them.
I get that. I get that, yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
basically the KRS, for those that were here the other day, is a reaction to what happened in Boone County with the sheriff.
Yes.
And for those who weren't able to attend, I do have a few extra copies of the legislative update if you would like one.
Thank you.
Okay, section 3.112, use of vehicle, or of equipment and vehicles. A few housekeeping items. One was we added a driver's license history check annually. It was just a driver's license check, and we felt that needed to be that history included in there. And then also the last paragraph of that, we added, I've got the whole thing highlighted, but it should have just been, the supervisor will notify the department head in writing who will keep the record in the employee's working file. This is when an employee receives a state citation from any moving violation.
Okay.
Okay.
A lot of people wonder about that and why we put this in there to begin with, but, you know, we're operating city vehicles, almost every employee we have, so we want to make sure that we're aware of any kind of violation that occurs and make sure that their license is in force, and we don't have somebody out here that's driving that we don't know about, so it's their responsibility to report that. There was some question asked when we had it. We wrote it the first time last year. We wrote it and said they must notify their supervisor. Then there was nothing in there about what their supervisor would do with it, so we wanted to clarify that part of it.
4.4, paydays and payroll. We added the line, pay increases will begin on the first day of a pay period following any salary changes. What we've come across recently is we had some promotions and they were at one salary for 1 day of the pay period, and then the rest of that time they were at the new salary. It creates a nightmare in bookkeeping.
I'm sure it does.
Not only for us or for the payroll department, but also CERS when reporting that. So we added that in there. So if somebody, you know, gets promoted on a Tuesday and it's in the middle of the week, they won't receive that increase in pay till the very next pay period.
Okay.
Do you want to add anything, Mark? No. Want to add anything?
Thank
to
you,
that?
Chief Wilson, for that one. You have a council meeting on a Tuesday night. People get promoted. It becomes effective then. The pay period starts on Friday, or starts actually on Saturday, ends on Friday, so you've got those 2 or 3 days. It was causing a nightmare, you know, with payroll.
So, okay, 4.9, employee evaluations. This is, again, just a kind of a housekeeping thing. We've added in there, the performance of all employees is generally evaluated according to an ongoing 12-month cycle on a fiscal year basis. And, of course, then we added beginning July 1 through June 30th, so everybody's aware what fiscal year that is.
That's wrong.
That's wrong?
Look at this one.
Huh?
It should be June 1 to May 31st.
Oh, because of the evaluations.
This is the
Okay, I can
reason
go in there and
why.
change that right now.
We were going to move it to the fiscal year because it's not really fair for us to hold people, especially department heads, accountable for their whole budget when we were doing evaluations on a calendar year. So they only had half a year to implement maybe the new programs and things that were budgeted in that year. So we wanted to clean that up last year, so we did fiscal year. Then also, everybody remembers, I think, that we started the whole evaluation process, and we wanted to make sure that those evaluations had something to do with the pay increases. So we wanted to be performance-based, basically. So what happened was, if we kept that way, and the raises would go in effect the 1st of July, the evaluation period didn't end until June 30th, so there was no way to get those completed in a timely manner, get it in, get all that stuff done with payroll. If we want those to account for a performance-based any kind of increase that we're going to use for that on the evaluation system. So what we decided was to move it back a month, so make it end May 31st. That gives the department heads, the supervisors, and everybody at least that month of June to get them in. As a matter of fact, I have them all on my desk right now. That deadline was this Monday. We made it June 15th. So every evaluation in the city is done right now. And so the next thing is, the next deadline is for them to do a personal action form deciding what that pay increase is going to be. You know, and they can go from anywhere in that range that you all put in the budget, that, you know, from 0% to that 2.3%. So it's according to what those were done. So each department head is going to go through and, based on that performance of the past year, decide which one of those is there. Again, that's another part of trying to get us towards that midpoint also. So all those are considerations within that. But we needed to let them have enough time to get the evaluations turned in. So that gave us that time. And they are now complete. In the process of getting them put together to present to the mayor. But those are done, and then we had to have the personal action forms done in time in order to hit that first payroll after that pay increase goes into effect. So we made that June 29th, I think, is the deadline that we've set for that one. So there was some reasons behind changing those dates. It was just basically a timing. We're still doing 12 months, but it was just trying to get to that fiscal year and let everything flow in place. I didn't think too far ahead last year when we did some of these things. So
I'll make that correction. The other thing I just wanted to note on this section, I just recently added the evaluation forms and the SEGs into that section. So those are all added. Okay. Section 5.1 is educational assistance. If you all recall, we opened that up last year, and it was unlimited, that we would cover any and all educational tuition fees and books and all that kind of stuff. And our employees really took advantage of that. And we kind of went a little over budget with it. But anyway, we went back and looked, and there's some IRS regulations now, and the limit for them is $5,250. Before I think it becomes taxable income for our employees. So we went back and took a look at that and reduced the unlimited to the $5,250. So, you know, and that is per calendar year. So it would be run from January through December.
Right.
Okay. Okay, now we get to the vacation benefits. There was some things that were removed from that. It says compensation for vacation leave in lieu of time off shall not be granted. And we took out, except that compensation for vacation time in lieu of time off. Now we took that out and we added with the exception in which it may be granted for one time after 15 continuous years of employment with the city. Do you want to comment on that?
Yes.
Anything? Go ahead.
This was something that was enacted several years ago, where there was a buyout, that, you know, we had a lot of people that were maxed out on their vacation time and some things like that. I can't even remember what year it was first enacted, where they had the one-time buyout. So you could do it after 15 years to do it. That is a costly benefit for us to be providing. We looked at it and thought, well, okay, we need to change this one. So we didn't think it was fair to change it to the people that had already been hired, you know, and that were here working now, knew they had this benefit when they came. So what we thought the fairest thing to do was to continue that for the existing employees we have. And then, as you can see, I think we put July 1. Yeah, July 1. So anybody hired after July 1 of this year will not be eligible for that benefit. Now, of course, if they have this time in the bank when they leave, we pay them for it. You know, that's law that we have to do, or retiring or whatever. But the one-time buyout was getting, in essence, twice is what it was doing. And I'm not sure what the reasoning was when it was enacted years ago. I'm not sure what it was. I wasn't a part of that. So
their vacation rolls over every year?
you can accumulate double the amount that you, I guess, you know, are granted each year. So if you get 2 weeks a year, then you can keep 4 weeks on the books. If you get 3 weeks, you keep 6 weeks on the books. Anything over that 6 weeks, you're done. But you have 2 years to take it. So you have 2 years to get those numbers down to do. And everything you talk about vacation time is to get you away from here. It's to get you away from your work, to go relax, to go do things, and to you know, kind of unwind. That's what we want to encourage people to do, is to do that. That's why we're suggesting this change to this one.
The one other thing that we added is that the vacation payout will be in one lump sum. It is not subject to CERS withholding, so it doesn't go towards their retirement. Okay. Holidays, I've got that highlighted. The employees may elect to receive payment during the week in which the holiday falls, or they may choose to make the holiday as a scheduled day off at a later time with supervisory approval. Holiday pay shall be equal to their regular hourly rate of pay multiplied by the number of hours in their regular shifts of work, or 12 hours, whichever is less. We just had to clarify some of that. There was some confusion on that. Oh, wait a minute, going the wrong way. Jury duty. We added in there in the last line, all full-time employees shall be compensated at the normal rate of pay for the first 10 days of jury duty or any part thereof. We really didn't have anything in our policy saying one way or another whether we pay them or not. Mm-hmm. And I went and kind of pooled most of the other cities around, and this is kind of this norm for them, so we've added that in. That was Mark's fault.
You can thank me for that, since I had jury duty this past 2 months.
Yeah.
And I was curious. I said, you know, what is it, you know, if I'm here, you know, and I'm gone and I'm getting paid from here, you know, then all of a sudden I get my big $12, you know, a day check from the Kenton County Circuit Court, which $3 of it goes to parking. You know, so that $9, what do we do with that $9? Is there any limit on what we, you know, do we have our employees pay it back to us? What do we do with it? And we checked around, and nobody makes anybody do that we found. That was how this all started. You know, I was worried about, you know, how that was and how that was going to work. Then we looked and said there is no limit to it. So what is it? You know, how many days? You know, we have to let everybody off. There's no doubt. But how many days will you pay for those people to be off? So we have to leave them, let them have off, no matter if it's 30 days. However, we found that this 10-day limit was about what, you know, as far as being paid your full salary while you're away.
When most people get jury duty, you get, what, 3 months of it usually, but it's, how often did you go down? Maybe 4 or 5 times?
I didn't get to go this week. Next week I'm off. But over this past 3 months, I have been there 4 times.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it
Yeah, so
probably
we felt the 10
unless you
days
get,
was-
or you're lucky enough to get picked to set on a trial that could last a week,
Yeah.
which we sat through one of those, about a month ago. But, I mean, it's not usually any longer than that. There was a murder trial that I didn't get picked for, and I think we have Amy Swore from the PD that was down there in the same jury duty that I was. She didn't get picked for that one either. But that one was over in 3 days, and it was a murder trial. So, I mean, I think that some of those things aren't going to last. Yeah. It'll be very rare for anybody to break this 10 days is my point, very rare.
The other thing that we added in here is when an employee is released from jury duty as a juror before completion of the regular workday, the employee is required to return to work and complete the workday. We'll pay them for their time that they're down there at jury duty, but, if they're dismissed at noon, they need to come back. We're not going to pay them for the full day. Okay.
I had a scam going on.
This next section
Yeah.
is kind of in-depth. We changed this one a bunch. I'm going to tell you that there has been some personnel issues that have arisen within the past month that we saw the need to clarify a few things. I'm going to say everything that you're looking at on the things that are listed have existed inside the police department for years. As a matter of fact, there were 43 items listed within the police department that are still there that this council adopted. Okay, these were taken directly from there, changed the wording a little bit, but to make these citywide. Now, you would look at some of these and you would think, well, there really is no reason why we should have to tell some employee that they shouldn't be mistreating another employee. Well,
Guess what?
there is always a name or a reason that these things are created. Any policy or anything that you look at through any organization, there's somebody that is responsible for that. I could go through the PDs and tell you names to everybody that was, associated with each one of these. So we think no, but this gives some clarity to what is acceptable, what is not acceptable. That's why these are there. So it's just looking at them and seeing some things. I know there may be a couple that are controversial. One in particular, if you want to go to one about making comments. Supreme Court's always held that the public has to have faith in its government. And I know, in fact, when this was enacted in the police department several years ago, talking about, an employee not being able to go out and publicly criticize their superiors or their city's official, stance on something. So let's think about that and think about this. If some of our employees, would go out and criticize, publicly what council was doing, maybe in a forum now that could be social media, how Facebook is and everything else, or any other. I guess Facebook's an old technology now. I don't do it much, so I'm not sure what they all are. But it's very important that the public have faith in what we do. That's the most important thing. And most of, all the ones that I have seen where there's been something about this. So we're not restricting free speech by any means. What we're trying to do is make sure to ensure the public's confidence in us to do our jobs as government. So that's the one in here that I thought that you all would look at and maybe be a little concerned about whether it was there. That's there. It's our recommendation that we put it in. If you don't want to put it in, it's up to you all. That's fine too. But that's the reason that it's there, is for that whole reason. And I'll tell you that one has existed for several years within at least one department in this city. Several years, about being able to do that. So, I don't know if you have any questions about the rest of them.
I just have one comment to add to that, and obviously with social media, this is an issue that is litigated a lot, and it probably is gray, whether it is proper grounds to terminate someone if they go on Facebook tonight and they say, Mark's the biggest idiot in the world, okay? But there's nothing saying we can't have that in our policies, so it's just sort of something to talk about with the employee. Now, whether that's the only grounds for termination, I think that's a different issue. Because I think, I would hope there would be something else, because that would be, that could be an issue. So that's my only comment on that.
Yeah, I think it's just subject to disciplinary
action. If they went on social media and called their boss an idiot, that would be perfect grounds for discharge, and that's not a First Amendment issue. But we'd have to be real careful what kind of comments we're going to discipline somebody for, I mean, if they come on social media and say, oh, well, the city's wasting money, that's potentially a First Amendment protection. So we have to be real careful on that kind of thing. I think generally it's fine, but it seems like it could apply.
It's a slippery slope.
Problem,
Yeah. No, I agree. As applied, it's an as-applied challenge.
Exactly.
That's what it is.
We're okay either way. If you want to remove it, we'll remove it. If you want to leave it in there, we'll leave it in there. I will say this, that it needs to be removed from the PD's policies that you adopt by ordinance every 4 years when that accreditation happens, those policies come over here and this council adopts them. So we need to remove it from that one also if we're going to remove it from this one.
Is this policy now requiring disciplinary action? Because I'm looking at it, it says.
This is subject to it.
No, it's subject to. There's nothing requiring.
I think that's okay.
Yeah, it's fine. It says subject to, doesn't mean that they're gonna be.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah.
For standards.
Yeah.
Yeah. The only, and I just, this was just, for some reason, I just read the email this afternoon. I don't know. The only change I would suggest is when you, in the third paragraph there where it says, in the fourth paragraph, any employee determined to be guilty of any one or more of the following, makes it seem like there's some adjudication that takes place. I would probably just wordsmith that a little bit.
Especially in the couple of paragraph 1 that talks about violation of law.
Right. So I would just, maybe if I could just tweak the wording just a little bit. I think you and I are probably on the same page that it seems, it doesn't change the spirit of it.
Do you think we need to say anything in here that, well, how do we usually say it? It doesn't have to be on that list. You know, it's not confined to what's on that list either. You know, how do we usually say that?
Well, and that's always the $6 million question, whether you really want to enumerate this sort of thing or not.
Right.
You know, I would suggest you have some other blanket provision in here. But in all fairness, Mark, this is a pretty exhaustive list.
I think you can put just about everything in there. I think there's just about anything you can,
Okay.
you know, especially when you're looking at 95 and 15 and those chapters, and you're looking at that, and you know, we have to form this into inefficiency, insubordination, one of those misconduct kind of things, and pretty much everything in here. You know, we wanted kind of a list because, you know, what is mistreatment of another employee or another person that comes into our contact? You know, we don't want our employees out mistreating the public. It doesn't matter which one of us it is, you know, and we should treat everybody, you know, the same with respect, courtesy, blah, blah, blah. Those are the kind of things that are expected. You know, there were some things that came up, like I said, in the past month, you know, that we saw and we looked at and said, well, there's no real clear guidance citywide about what that expectation is. You know, there are some general, when you look at our policies and you look at the disciplinary policies that we adopted last year and the code of conduct, there's general rules in there. But you could argue again, and I know about the list and being exhaustive, it's not. You know, but everything can pretty much fit in there somewhere. So where is the line with some of that? So that's what we tried to do, was look and see what we had and put it in there.
Okay.
So a lot of times what you're seeing is with a lot of businesses, instead of them listing out these things that may be, you know, it's just pretty general, but they list out the things that are offenses that will terminate. You know, these are the things that will get you fired immediately. So that's another way to look at it. Instead of listing all these things as a possible, say, you know, here are examples of things, but these are the ones that will get you terminated immediately. Way to look at it, too. And then I like everything, but I can tell this came from the PD, like the superior officer and things like that. Are we going to fix that up a little bit?
Well, we left that in there because what do you call it? I thought we tried to make supervisor out of it.
Okay.
You know, what is insubordination? You know, and that was the whole thing. We may have missed that one, and I tried to change all those to supervisor, you know, because that issue has arisen, and that's the one in particular. So I'm looking through all of our policies and looking at, you know, the internal, you know, department policies that people had. There was nothing that talked about, except within the PD, that talked about insubordination. What is insubordination? You know, we know what it is, you know, but if somebody's sitting here and saying, well, you know, supervisor gives somebody an order, you know, you need to go do this. No, I'm not going to go do it. Where was it? In our general statements, we probably could have put them in there someplace. about what it was, but it, you know, pretty much states in there about having it in policy about what it was. So we wanted to clarify those kind of things. I know that sounds pretty elementary. I know it does, but I am telling you, I am recommending that we do something because there is some misunderstanding out there, or at least claiming that there is that of what some of these things are. Whether it's true or not, I don't know. I know Missy and I talked about this a lot and looked at it and sent them out to the guys to think about what it was and to see what we wanted to do and how we wanted to address this. So, why we're presenting it.
There's a definite need for clarification.
Yes. However we do that. Yeah, you can't wink at me. That's offensive too. I mean, I don't know what to say. But I'm just kidding. I'm not offended at all. It's not on record.
Oh, great. He's fired.
Yeah.
Here you go.
So,
We can't fire you, just quit.
Yeah, we're done.
simply, I mean, that could be something. And what we've been dealing with, it is, you know, so.
Gotta be
Yeah,
careful.
that's what I said was, wow. I didn't know what to do. So we're suggesting some of these things. If there's a better way to do it with the attorneys, we are more than willing to listen to that and, you know, and change anything. Place to start. No.
So going to what Mr. Cahill said, is there a list of termable offenses?
But I don't know that that can be all exhaustive either.
No.
I think so. I think there are.
No, because
I mean,
every day something weird pops up you'd never think about.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Okay.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah, and I think too, some of these things, if it's something that happens one time and then the supervisor or whatever, you know, has a little chat with the person, if it's a consistent thing, that makes it a lot different. You know, if it's happening all the time, some of these little things all the time, then there's a problem.
Right.
Yeah,
Then,
yeah.
so,
They have to be documented each time.
yeah, I mean, I don't see how you can,
But there's a reasonableness standard for all of this, like under number, you know, 6, or one of these here, number 15, destruction of city property. Well, obviously, I could take a paperclip and break it, and that's destruction of city property, right? So I think all of these, there's a reasonableness test.
right.
So, I mean, I still think this gives a lot of broad discretion, which is what the point is.
And so, did you say there was a couple of things that just needed to be tweaked on there as far as officer and
Well, is the superior.
the
Yeah.
superior?
Yeah. Because I thought I went in and changed all of them to
Supervisor.
supervisor, but
Okay.
I might have not.
Oh,
We'll fix those, or
Okay.
anyway,
I got
Mr.
it.
Gatlin would like to
And
fix
then
it.
just a slight change to paragraph 4 where it doesn't say determined to be guilty of any one or more of
Yeah.
the following acts.
You want to tweak that?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I'll send something tomorrow.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
I know Mrs. Skidmore had some.
I just didn't, you know, you said like this list wasn't really exhaustive. What about that phrase, such as, but not limited to?
That's good. I like that.
Something like that. We can, my thought is probably we add a catch-all in 27.
Anything else that might be deemed by the supervisor?
Just out of curiosity, and this is related but unrelated, is there a social media policy with the city of Erlanger?
yes.
Okay, well, I think we need to include that violation of the social media policy, because that's where I'm seeing a lot of,
Right. That's where we're seeing most of the trouble,
yeah, I mean,
is that part of it.
yeah, absolutely.
Okay, we'll make those changes, and once Mr. Gatlin gives them back to us, we'll make them and send them back out for y'all to look at again. Yeah. So, this part of the policy, I don't believe is one that, I don't know that we have to fix it next meeting, but this is something that we need to get done. However we're going to do it, we need to get it done.
Okay.
This one is approved by municipal order, so
Oh, okay, so only one then, yeah, that's right.
All right.
That's the last
Is
one.
that it under the policy changes?
I believe so.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is the tax amnesty program. Ms. Cahill or Mr. Howard, did you want to talk about that? I can talk about that as well.
Go ahead.
Okay.
We're open.
But,
Good job, guys.
okay, so there's been a House bill passed that would allow the city to institute a tax amnesty program for delinquent taxes. Thank you for bringing that up. So in the sheet that's up here, property tax. In the sheet that's shown here, the chart that's shown, if we look at the totals, if we add up 2013 to back to 1999, that total comes to about $35,000 in delinquent taxes. I think what we agreed on was that the city does not have a delinquent tax problem. We could institute an amnesty program. I think Mr. Engelman put it very well in an email earlier today. Said that he thinks that it would probably be better, that the city would be better off if we focused our energy on going after some of the larger properties, some of the bigger, go for some of the low-hanging fruit here. I think that would probably be more beneficial as well. It's going to, we'd get more out of that than instituting an amnesty program. So unless anybody else has any other thoughts on that, while it might have been passed by the House, I don't think it's something that we want to necessarily go into at this point.
My only concern on that would be what kind of message are we sending to the people that pay their taxes on time?
Yeah.
Right.
So what we're doing, we're saying, you don't have to pay your taxes, but later on down the road, we'll just waive it and not let you.
Yeah.
But you're telling the people that are paying on time, and I've been in collections for a long time. I don't do it now, but I used to it for a long time. And I was talking to Missy earlier. It's not a fun job to collect, if anybody's ever had to do it, and a lot of people had to do it. But I just don't feel it's right that we tell the people that are paying on time that, well, just keep paying on time, but, we're going to let everybody else go.
Yeah.
I just don't think that's a good message.
I agree.
I agree, too.
Yeah, so I think we just skip this and not.
Is
not
the
even
amnesty on just the interest and fees, or is it?
Yeah, I mean, arguably, there's a constitutional argument that some people are raising. I mean, there's a lot of chatter right now amongst municipal attorneys, whether this is even legal and constitutional. But clearly, it would be unconstitutional to get rid of the actual tax. Okay. It's probably constitutional to do away with interest and penalties. And quite frankly, the state does that. The state has an income tax amnesty program. But clearly, you cannot get rid of the tax.
Mayor.
Yeah, so, did you? Go ahead.
I just want to let everybody know, I left there's a chart or in front of each one of you that kind of breaks down. Greg went through this today. Jennifer actually put all this chart up here together, and she separated the real property, excluding the mobile homes, and then she did another chart with just the mobile homes and ones that maybe mobile homes that no longer exist physically in that spot, but we still have them on our tax roll and everything. But I left each one of you a list here that kind of breaks it all down and lets you know just exactly where it stands as far as how many we have delinquent and the reasons behind that and everything. So I think our biggest one is our parcels that are 1 year delinquent. We have 40. Out of all the properties in the city, we have 40 parcels. That is nothing. Yeah. We are actually 99% collected on the base amount for 2014.
See,
that's incredible.
So
it's really great.
Yeah.
Mind-boggling, quite frankly.
Yeah.
But there's few cities
So,
that drag that.
they don't call Jen the general for nothing.
Yeah.
Love it.
And that's a good point too. amnesty, most amnesty programs don't kick in until 2 or 3 years down the road anyhow. And if you look, there's very little that even exists going out that far.
It's like collect $25,000
Right.
or so.
And what we'd have to spend on postage and it,
Happy people that are.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'd be better off chasing after some of the bigger, more delinquent properties.
It's good it was brought up, though,
Yeah.
because there's going to be a lot of cities in northern Kentucky and in Kenton County that enact this. This seems to be KLC's pushing it, maybe it's too strong of a word. They're doing the circuit talking about it, and a lot of people are jumping on board. So there'll be a lot of articles about this, and at least
Yeah, we can say we
brought
looked
it up,
at it.
talked about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if nothing else, we've went through the motion and realized just how good a shape we are as far as collections on our property tax.
Yeah.
All right, so then the next item on the agenda are key performance indicators.
I wanted to come down here so I could see all of you. It's kind of hard up there.
Which one are you going to start with?
Huh?
Which one do you want to start with?
I can go any way you go. It's fine. That's okay. But first of all, what is a key performance indicator? I think last year we talked about these a little bit, and especially we talked about these when we instituted the new evaluation system and how we were going to make this all performance-based. Well, key performance indicators could go down as far as that each job task and what that task is. So what we wanted to do was institute departmental performance indicators so that we could maybe have a way to gauge what each department is doing. Now, I want to say this at the beginning. This is a beginning, okay? This is where we're starting. These will be tweaked. This is our first go at this and doing these things. So what we did was almost a year ago, we sat down as a team and said, what is it that we do? I said, I want everybody to think about what we do inside. If we do a job task analysis and what that is and how it should be done and what time it takes us to do it, the cost involved in it, all of these kind of things. So each department came back with some things, and what we tried to do this year was just limited it to 4. Okay. Now our goal is, and I know you've heard me talk about this before, and look around at what some larger municipalities are doing. Louis Stat is one that I really liked that the city of Louisville was doing, putting it out there. When their mayor took over, that was the one thing that he did, and he created a whole office of accountability, which was a very good thing. Louisville's got several thousand employees now since they're a metro government, and there was 3 people in that office. I was lucky enough to get to meet those 3 people, talk to them, see a presentation by them and what they did. They all came from out of state. None of them are from Louisville. They've all come from somewhere else. A lot of them had, one of them, the one lady that runs it, has a military background. She came from that, to the Air Force, and doing these things. But the whole point is bringing accountability to government is basically what they wanted to do. That's what you see all these things doing. We can talk about this, throughout the country, and we can talk about, being transparent, and where does that transparency come from, and all that. Most of that's geared around financial transparency. What we're trying to do is gauge what we do every day. We all know that we provide service. Okay, we started down that path, several years ago. We created a mission statement, and our mission statement is a very good mission statement because it says what we do. That's what a mission statement is what you do, okay? What you do, who does it, how you do it. That's what our mission statement says. But what we've talked about in the past was creating maybe a vision statement for the city. Where do we go? So everything that we do, we know how we do it with our mission statement, but where are we going with that? So, what we're going to be asking you all to do is to create that vision for us. We need a vision inside to say this is what we're working towards. It can be very simple. I've got a couple, but it guides us for the future and where we're supposed to go. I wrote down a couple, and it's kind of really simple about what they were, and I was surprised about Microsoft. And Microsoft's vision statement is simply empower people through great software, anytime, any place, on any device, period. That's it. Microsoft is one of the largest, corporations in the world now. Started by one guy in a garage, a couple guys in a garage. But my whole point is we need to have that, and it can be very simple. I know the mayor and I have talked about this a little bit in these first 6 months, talking about creating that vision. Do we want to be? Several years ago, and I hate to keep going back to this, but we were looking for something inside the police department. We had mission statement, we had values, we had all these things. But what was it? We came up with simply safeguarding the future. It was just simply safeguarding the future. So everything that we did had to be looking towards the future and safeguarding the future. Still there today, as far as I know. Isn't it, Chief? Still there as part of that. And it can be very simple, just like that, and revisit it every few years to see what it is. But do we want to be the most livable city in northern Kentucky, in Kenton County? Do we want to have the lowest tax rate? Do we want to have the most businesses? What do we want to be the most business friendly? It can be all those things. It can be very simple to do. But then everything that we do needs to work towards that. That comes right back to these KPIs. So the initial KPIs that we're looking at are just simply what we do today. And we know what we do today. So each department, had a big hand in doing these and figuring out each one of their own. As you can see, there's a KPI. Now, I've shared each one of these with you all through Google, okay? So you should have it shared with you. Now, if you can't get it somehow, let me know, and I will send it to you in an email somehow. But I didn't want to print all these out. Not being the big, nature person, but I didn't want to kill all the trees that it was going to take to do all that. But anyway, these are administrations. And I'm going to tell you, administration was very difficult. When you get into, we got a few difficult ones, but police, fire, public works, those were easy. Administration, and then many different things that Missy does inside her department that were very difficult to look at and say, how do we count this? Because what does it have to be? Okay? And one, you have to be able to document it, you have to be able to quantify it, and then you're going to have to be able to set a goal of some kind. So you got to be able to count it, basically. So how do we count it, and what do we do? So you'll see some of these things. Reportable accident injuries and associated cost. And then it says, what the description is, what the measure will be, and then what our goal will be. So on each one of these, it's that way. So we can walk through them all, but through administration, what we want to do, we want to reduce the number of claims and costs, and we want to ensure, this is the purpose behind it, we want to ensure that procedures are in place to promote a safe workplace. That's the bottom line of what we want to do. So this is why it's there. This is what we're trying to accomplish. The education and training, okay, it's pretty self-explanatory. But on this side of it, it's not so much what Missy does inside her department as far as training her personnel, which you're going to see in some of the other departments. But this one is what training that she and her department provide to the employees of the city. So what we want to do is increase that, the number of training hours, and then we want to gauge what the benefit is. I think each time we do something, there should be a benefit that comes out of it. Because if we're doing something that we're not gaining a benefit from, we shouldn't be doing it. It's just that simple. And ensure all the employees receive that proper training. We hear so many times, and you just heard it, when we were talking about what we have to do with the code of conduct and doing that. We went down a really, really, I think, steep cliff last year when we introduced the code of conduct. And we put those general things in there and seeing how, this is the behavior, and these are the expectations that we have. And if we're not doing that and setting those out for our employees, we're failing them. They have to know what those expectations are, or they're never going to be able to abide by them or live up to them. The revenue collection. We bantered this one back and forth. You just heard about the tax amnesty program. So we were thinking about how do we do this? And actually, when this one first started up, it was revenue generation, and we made some tweaks to it. So what is it? So what we want to try to do is improve the collection of revenue by instituting new methods, increase revenue, ensure payment of revenue owed. Okay? That would be these delinquent taxes. I can give you another one that's right out there, the number of parking citations that we issue. And I'm going to tell you, after we send 3 letters, we do nothing else. 2 or 3, Chief? So 2 or 3? Anyway, it's 2 or 3 letters that we send out, and after that, we don't do anything else. So, I mean, there are different methods that we can look at in departments to increase our revenue, not by increasing taxes or doing anything else, but increasing what is already owed to us by doing that. So that's what happened. Is. The event coordinator position, that's a new one, you know, that has been added on now as a part-time employee. Kim is here. I don't know if most of you have met her now or not. We did a lot of, you know, Becky took them over last year and did a very good job. But if you see what's happening this year, there are new events that are coming. She brought a great, vast knowledge and experience to this job, and we're going to use it. So, but again, we want to identify those events that have the most positive impact. So if we have an event that 10 people show up at, or we have an event that 50 people show up at, where are we getting the most? And what was the reason why we only had 10 show up? If we only had 10 show up, maybe it was we didn't advertise it correctly, and we didn't get the word out. But it could be maybe just nobody wants to do that activity, whatever it would be. So that's that one. That's all of the administration. Like you said, there's going to be 4 on each one. Communications, technology, and innovation. Mr. Allens. I don't know if anybody knows about how our requests for assistance work. They go through what's called a help desk ticket. And those help desk tickets are computer generated. So if you have an IT issue, you have to fill out one of those, okay? I was probably the world's worst at violating that. I would pick up the phone and say, hey, this isn't working, can you come fix it? And of course, Matt would come and fix it. And there was never tracking of it. We never tracked it for some of those things. But what we're trying to do is get everybody pushed this way so we can track it. And you'll see as we go on down, it'll be that. It'll even come in clearer why we want to do that. But our goal is to reduce the time and cost by 5%, okay? And to ensure that all the issues are being addressed in an efficient manner. So we want to make sure that a help desk ticket doesn't sit there for 5 days. And we want to make sure they're being addressed as they can. Or if there's a reason why it's sat there for 5 days, we want to know why it's been there for 5 days. The equipment. We want to have a replacement plan. If we're looking at it, we're spending, and there is an informal replacement plan that I know that Matt has been working on, and Steve had before that, and Becky had before that. You know, there was an informal plan, but we need to know what we're going to spend. You know, we sat in this room several years ago, and I know some of you were here, that we did the whole thing with Bill Shire talking about what our biggest threat was years ago. And years ago, we even identified IT as what was going to be our biggest threat. And it is, keeping up with the technology that you know, is out there today. So we want to have a replacement plan, and we want to be able to reduce those costs by 5% again, and we want to ensure equipment is utilized in the most efficient manner. Repeat help desk tickets. Matt came up with this one, you know, and I think it was a really, really good one to come up with. He came with all of them, but this one was one that I was really happy about seeing. We have repeat offenders out there that take a lot of time. We have repeat offenders, and she drops it. We have repeat offenders, you know, and maybe it's because those people don't know how to use that piece of equipment. You know, it could be as simple as that. It could be a training issue. It could be somebody out there that's probably misusing the equipment, maybe abusing the equipment and doing some things like that. So, and this was a really, really good one to have in place to talk about that and trying to reduce those reoccurring problems that we have, and maybe we address them, you know, simply by training. So, innovation. This is one that's kind of out there, but, you know, this whole job title, you know, when we're talking about communications, technology, and innovation, it's a real shame that this wasn't already in place, because innovation with the new phone system that we're instituting throughout, that's going to save the city tens of thousands of dollars when it's said and done. Would have been that one that Matt could have really went and hung he's going to hang his hat on it anyway, I hope. But it would have been one that he said, well, you know, look at this one. That was innovative thinking, getting outside the box, saying, hey, Cincinnati Bell's not the only game in town. And that was the whole thing. But it took real courage to do that in where we're at, you know, and what we have to do. We have to make sure that our stuff works all the time. You know, we can't be down. So that was one. But, you know, trying to do that. But increase productivity of the organization and reduce costs of existing methods by 5%, and ensure that new technology is being utilized. So if you see how this is all a path, it's, you know, hopefully making us more efficient, reducing cost, and doing that, becoming a better performing organization.
question about, I guess, these KPIs versus the admin ones. These seem to be more along the lines of what I'm thinking about as a KPI because they're very quantifiable.
Right.
5%, 6%, 5%.
We thought about that, and what this is our goal. What we're going to try to do is we're going to take this first 6 months, and we're going to look at what the numbers are. We put a tracking system in place so that we can count those things. In January, we're going to put those percentages back into the ones that you don't see percentages at now, because we weren't really clear about what it was. So we wanted to have a really good definition, you know, of what this is right now. So that's why that's there. Public Works. This is another one. You're going to see all the 5% in this one. Complaints. We simply wanted to be able to have a way, and Rick's doing this, but a formal way of being able to track the complaints that come in. And you look on the description, it doesn't matter if that complaint was founded or that complaint is unfounded. It still takes staff time to go look at that complaint that doesn't exist. So we wanted to reduce the response and completion time. So if in fact it's that pothole, we wanted to know when it was reported, okay? The response to that was when it got completed and when it got closed down. Now again, you know, we set this goal of looking at it and saying, you know, we want to reduce all that by 5%. But the whole point of it is, and the purpose behind it is to ensure complaints are addressed in the appropriate time frame. Whenever we do surveys, and I'm going to tell you, I don't care if we do another one, and I hope we're planning on doing one very shortly, NKU will probably be able to do that for us very shortly. Anyway, when you're looking at it, this part is what we'll score lowest in. I'm going to tell everybody that right now, because we'll get this, we're not responsive. We're going to get, we don't return phone calls. It takes us too long to do things. I mean, done a few of these over the years, and that is the complaint every time. So that's why we wanted to make sure we had this one in there for everybody. But that we're going to look at it as an organization for that side, but this one. Help desk tickets. Rick and his crew use help desk tickets the same way Matt does, but they use them for building maintenance issues. So if in fact we had to start tracking it that way and looking at it, it's been a very efficient system. Again, we wanted to make sure it's the same thing. Reduce them by 5%, the response and completion time by 5%. Routine task. This is the one that's going to be difficult. And Rick and I have talked about this one a lot. So what is it? So if I know that I go mow this park every week, okay, how long does it take me to do it? You know, and what are the circumstances behind it? You know, or whatever task I do. You know, if I'm picking up the trash along Dixie Highway at the bus stops, you know, those tasks that we do routinely out here trimming bushes, you know, the potholes and the things like that and the different things that come up. You know, he can even get as far into, you know, there's routes in the wintertime of plowing the streets. You know, so how can we be more efficient in plowing those streets? Well, first of all, we have to have a gauge. So that's what Rick has instituted, logs inside. So now, in fact, as people go out and they go to a job site, they put what time they get there. All right? They put what time they get done, they put what they do, and then it's turned in. I mean, it's a system that's going to take a while to perfect and get in. But that's our whole goal is to do that and to become, like he says, more efficient. The equipment maintenance and replacement. If we look at our big ticket items, a lot of it has to do with equipment maintenance and replacement, making sure that we're doing those correct things to get it done. There may be times, and we just had this conversation earlier today, we have a vehicle replacement committee. So what we're going to try to do is kind of broaden their scope. Broadening their scope, it's these major purchases that we're doing. You know, so if in fact we have a dump truck, and there's not been any issues with this so far, but I think the last one, Rick, that you're getting rid of is a 1990 something, whatever it is, 99. There's a lot of use out of that truck when you talk about the winters that we've had and some of the things that we're doing. You know, that's 16 years. You know, that we've got out of that one piece of equipment. Well, you know, when we're spending a couple $100,000 on a piece of equipment, we want to make sure that it lasts as long as it is. So that's what it is, you know, and Rick, and I'm going to tell you, his crew has done a wonderful job. They're doing a lot of this in-house now. The talent that they have inside that, you know, it's really reducing our cost on that maintenance side of it. They're being able to do a lot of it on their own inside, which is really good. So we want to start tracking that kind of stuff to see what it is in a more formalized manner. That's what it is. So we'll be more efficient that way. And of course, again, reducing that. I thought I'd change that one on there, about reconciling the bank accounts. I'm gonna tell you another difficult one was finance. Greg and I sat, and I lost all my hair, and Greg went gray, trying to figure out what we were gonna do with them. But